I'm not required to carry property deeds on me. You can verify ownership through dispatch or public records.
Or you can stop giving me an attitude and hand over your ID.
I haven't committed a crime, so no, there's no legal basis for that.
You people always think you know the law.
I do. And your body cam is on, so I suggest you check it before this turns into a problem.
The body cam footage would capture every word of what happened next. William Reynolds stood on the front steps of his own apartment building, toolbox in hand, work clothes covered in paint and sawdust. Officer Ryan Tucker was treating him like a criminal because 3 white tenants had called 911 to report a suspicious black man breaking into the building. What Ryan didn't know was that William owned 6 properties across Denver worth over $3 million. He had a Stanford business degree and 15 years of real estate experience. He'd built his portfolio from nothing, property by property. And in the next 20 minutes, this encounter would destroy Ryan's career and cost Denver $400,000. If you've ever been accused of something when you were completely innocent, drop a comment, hit subscribe, because this story is absolutely wild. William Reynolds was 42 years old. He'd grown up in South Denver with a single mother who cleaned houses for a living. She worked 3 jobs to keep William in school. She taught him one crucial lesson: property is power. Own things nobody can take from you. William took that lesson to heart. He excelled at Denver East High School and earned a full scholarship to Stanford. He graduated at 22 with a degree in real estate development and came home to Denver with a plan. He started small, saved every penny from his job as a property manager. At 25, he bought his first building, a rundown duplex in 5 Points. He learned plumbing, electrical work, carpentry, fixed everything himself, rented both units, used that income to buy another property. By 30, he owned 3 buildings. By 35, 6 small apartment complexes with 8 to 12 units each. He kept rents affordable, did his own maintenance, knew every tenant by name. He wasn't getting rich, but he was building real wealth. The building on Welton Street was his latest purchase. 8 months ago, he'd bought this 4-story brick building with 12 units. It needed serious work, which made it affordable. William spent those 8 months renovating unit by unit, new plumbing throughout, updated electrical systems, fresh paint everywhere, modern appliances in every kitchen. He did most work himself, kept costs down that way. Plus, he enjoyed working with his hands, enjoyed transforming something broken into something beautiful. This Thursday afternoon in October, William was finishing Unit 7. He'd spent the entire day installing new kitchen cabinets. Nearly 6 p.m. now. He was exhausted, covered in sawdust, ready to go home. He gathered his tools, locked the unit, headed down to the lobby. He planned to store his toolbox in the maintenance closet before leaving. Walking through the lobby, he noticed 3 people outside the front entrance, all white, all relatively new tenants who'd moved in during the past 2 months. As he finished their units, William recognized them immediately. Janet from Unit 3, Paul from Unit 9, Sarah from Unit 11. He'd personally shown each of them their apartments, collected their deposits and first month's rent, given them his cell number for maintenance emergencies, but something about how they were looking at him felt wrong. They weren't waving, weren't smiling, they were watching him with suspicion. William opened the front door from inside. "Hey folks, everything all right?" Janet stepped backward. "We're fine, just waiting for someone." William noticed she held her phone. He noticed the tension. "Okay, have a good evening." He stepped outside, walking toward his truck at the curb. Paul moved to block his path. "Do you live here?" William stopped, confused. "I own the building. You know that. I showed you your unit when you moved in." Sarah spoke up, uncertain. "We saw you coming out with tools. We weren't sure you were supposed to be here." "I own the building," William repeated, keeping frustration from his voice. "I've been working on Unit 7 all day, installing cabinets." The 3 exchanged glances. William saw it then. They'd already decided before he came outside. They didn't believe him, didn't want to believe him. "Do you have identification?" Paul asked. William felt anger rising but stayed calm. "I don't need to show you identification. I'm the landlord. You've met me. You pay rent to my company." "We're concerned about security," Janet said. "There's been break-ins in the neighborhood." "I haven't broken into anything. This is my building." That's when the police car pulled up. Officer Ryan Tucker was 33 years old, 9 years with Denver Police. White, tall, military bearing from 4 years in the Marines before joining the force. He considered himself a good cop, responded to calls, followed procedures, kept people safe. What Ryan didn't see was his own bias, how he automatically trusted certain people and doubted others, how certain faces looked criminal to him while others didn't, how his instincts, sharpened by years of experience, were actually prejudice wearing a badge. Ryan grew up in suburban Colorado Springs. His father was a cop. His grandfather was a cop. Law enforcement ran in the family. Ryan joined the Marines at 18, served in Iraq, returned home, and joined Denver police at 24. In 9 years, Ryan had made 537 stops. 64% involved Black or Hispanic individuals in a city where those populations combined made up 35% of residents. Ryan believed he just worked higher crime neighborhoods. He never noticed the pattern, never questioned whether he was creating the problem. Ryan was patrolling 5 Points when the call came through. 3 separate callers reporting a Black male, 40s, attempting to break into an apartment building on Welton Street, carrying tools, trying to force entry to multiple units. Ryan responded immediately. Breaking and entering in progress, possible burglary. He arrived and saw a Black man in work clothes on the front steps, holding a toolbox. 3 white residents nearby, looking concerned. Ryan exited his cruiser and approached, hand moving automatically to his belt near his weapon. He could see the 3 tenants gesturing toward the Black man, clearly agitated. William turned, saw the officer approaching, felt his stomach drop. He'd seen too many videos, heard too many stories. He knew how wrong this could go, but he also knew his rights. Ryan walked up without greeting. Step aside from the building. Need to ask you questions. William stayed where he was. I'm the landlord. These are my tenants. This is a misunderstanding. Ryan's expression remained flat. You have documentation proving that? I'm not required to carry property deeds on me. You can verify ownership through dispatch or public records. Or you can stop giving me an attitude and hand over your ID. I haven't committed a crime, so no, there's no legal basis for that. Ryan's jaw tightened. You people always think you know the law. William felt those words like a physical blow but kept his composure. I do, and your body cam is on, so I suggest you check it before this turns into a problem for you. The 3 tenants watched nervously. Sarah started to speak, stopped. William could see her realizing this had spiraled too far, but she didn't know how to walk it back. Ryan's face flushed. The body cam comment rattled him, but pride wouldn't let him back down. You threatening me? I'm informing you that everything you're doing and saying is being recorded. That's not a threat, that's a fact. Paul stepped forward, trying to help. Officer, we called because we saw him coming out of multiple apartments with tools. We didn't know who he was. William turned to Paul, voice sharp. You're kidding me right now. I showed you your apartment 6 weeks ago. I fixed your garbage disposal last month. You have my phone number. Paul looked uncomfortable but didn't back down. We were concerned about security. Have you ever watched someone realize they made a mistake but they're too committed to admit it? Comment below. Ryan held up a hand. Sir, last time. I need identification now. It's in my truck. I'll get it. No, you stay here. Tell me where it is. I'll retrieve it. That's my vehicle. You can't search my vehicle without probable cause or my consent, neither of which you have. I'm not searching it. You're directing me to retrieve your identification. I'm not directing you to do anything. If you want to see my ID, I'll get it myself. Otherwise, verify ownership through dispatch. Ryan's voice hardened. You're making this more difficult than it needs to be. I'm exercising my 4th Amendment rights. You're the one escalating this. Ryan pulled out handcuffs, final warning, hands behind your back. For what crime? William asked, voice steady. Specifically, what crime am I being arrested for? Trespassing, obstructing an investigation. I own the building. How can I trespass on property I own? And I haven't obstructed anything. I've stated facts and cited my constitutional rights. That's not obstruction. Ryan grabbed William's arm. William pulled back, but didn't strike or shove. Don't touch me. I'm not resisting, but I don't consent to being detained. You have no probable cause. Ryan called for backup into his radio, suspect refusing to comply. Possible 1033. William's mind raced. 1033 meant emergency officer needs assistance. Ryan was treating him like a violent threat for asserting his rights on his own property. Within 3 minutes, 2 more patrol cars arrived. 4 officers total now. The scene was spiraling completely out of control. One of the new officers approached, Sandra Mills, 12 years on the force. She'd seen this situation play out too many times. She looked at William, looked at the 3 tenants, looked at Ryan. What's happening here? She asked Ryan. Suspect claims to own the building, won't provide identification, resisting. Sandra turned to William. Sir, do you have identification? Yes, in my truck. I offered to get it. He said I couldn't. Sandra looked at Ryan. Why can't he get his ID from his truck? Ryan's jaw tightened. He was refusing to cooperate. No, I was refusing to let you search my vehicle without cause, William corrected. Sandra saw it then. What was really happening? She'd seen it too many times to miss. She looked at the 3 tenants. Do any of you know this man? Uncomfortable silence. Finally, Sarah spoke quietly. He might be the landlord. He showed me my apartment when I moved in, but we weren't sure if he was supposed to be in the building today. He owns the building, Sandra said slowly. Why would he need permission to be in a building he owns? Nobody answered. Sandra turned to William. Sir, would you please get your identification? I'll accompany you to your truck. Thank you, William said. Finally, someone with sense. He walked to his truck with Sandra following. He retrieved his wallet from the center console, handed her his driver's license and a business card reading Reynolds Property Management. Sandra examined them. William Reynolds. This address is listed on your business card. Yes, one of 6 properties I own. Do you have documentation proving ownership? In my truck, folder in the back seat. May I see it? Yes. Sandra retrieved the folder. Inside were property deeds, tax documents, insurance papers, everything clearly showing William Reynolds as owner of this building. Sandra walked back to Ryan. He owns the building. All documentation checks out. Ryan looked at the papers, but his pride was wounded. Why didn't he show this immediately? I offered to get my identification, William said, voice sharp now. You told me to put my hands behind my back instead. Ryan had no good response. Sandra turned to the 3 tenants. You called 911 about your own landlord? We didn't know it was him, Janet said weakly. Have you paid rent to his company? Yes. Have you met him before? Silence. So, you call police on a black man doing maintenance work in a building where you knew the black landlord does his own maintenance, Sandra said flatly. Is that accurate? It sounds bad when you say it like that, Paul muttered. It sounds bad because it is bad, Sandra shot back. She turned to William. Sir, I apologize for this. You're free to go. You never should have been detained in the first place. William looked at Ryan. I want his badge number, I want his supervisor's name, and I want to file a formal complaint. Ryan's face flushed. Look, this was just a misunderstanding. No, William said firmly. This wasn't a misunderstanding. You received a call and immediately assumed I was a criminal. You refused to listen when I told you I owned the building. You tried to arrest me on my own property. You used racially charged language. That's not a misunderstanding. That's racial profiling. The other officers looked uncomfortable. Sandra nodded slowly. He's right. Ryan provided his badge number and supervisor's information. He returned to his patrol car, embarrassed and angry. Sandra stayed behind. Mr. Reynolds, I strongly encourage you to file that complaint. What happened here was wrong. I will, William assured her. The 3 tenants started walking back inside. William stopped them. Actually, no. You 3 stay right here. Paul turned. What? You called the police on me, on your landlord, on the person who owns the roof over your heads. I want to understand why. Uncomfortable silence. I showed each of you your apartments personally, William continued. I've been in this building every day for 8 months. You've seen me working. You have my contact information. And when you saw me today, your first instinct was to call the police and report me as a criminal. Why? We were concerned, Janet said. About what? William demanded. About a black man in work clothes carrying tools in a building he owns? Be honest. If I was white, would you have called the police? Nobody answered. That's what I thought, William said. Here's what happens now. Your leases are up for renewal in the next few months. They won't be renewed. You have until your lease terms end to find new places. You can't kick us out for calling the police, Paul protested. I'm not kicking you out. I'm choosing not to renew your leases, which is my right as property owner. I don't want tenants who call police on their landlord. I don't want tenants who racially profile people, find somewhere else to live. That's discrimination, Janet said. No, that's me exercising my rights as a property owner. You'll have proper notice, everything legal. But you're not staying in my building. Sandra watched this exchange and didn't intervene. William was within his rights. The 3 tenants walked inside, shaken and upset. William turned to Sandra. Thank you for actually listening. I'm sorry it got this far. She handed him her card. If you need anything for your complaint, call me. I'll be a witness. William took the card. He drove home, still shaking with anger and adrenaline. That evening, William called his attorney, David Chen, a civil rights lawyer specializing in discrimination cases. David listened to everything and immediately confirmed they had a strong case. This is textbook discrimination and unlawful detention. The complaint was racially motivated, the officer's response was excessive, and you were detained without reasonable suspicion. Plus, you have Officer Mills as a witness, and that you people comment on BodyCam, this is solid. The formal complaint was filed within 24 hours. William also filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against Denver Police Department and Officer Ryan Tucker personally. The story broke in Denver news 2 days later. Property owner detained at his own building. Local stations ran the story. William did interviews. The body cam footage from Ryan's camera was released through public records requests. The footage was devastating. It showed William calmly explaining he owned the building. Ryan responding with, "You people always think you know the law." William warning him about the body cam. The three tenants unable to definitively say they didn't know who William was. Sandra Mills clearly frustrated with Ryan's handling. The "you people" comment went viral immediately. Response was immediate. Denver's black community rallied around William. Property owners of color shared their own stories. The hashtag #OwnersWhileBlack started trending locally. The "you people" comment became a rallying cry, shared millions of times on social media. Civil rights organizations used the clip in training materials as textbook example of coded racist language. Denver police had no choice but to act. Internal Affairs opened an investigation within 1 week. They interviewed Ryan for 5 hours across 2 days. The interview exposed everything wrong with his approach. Why did you immediately detain Mr. Reynolds? The callers reported burglary in progress. Did Mr. Reynolds tell you he owned the building? Yes. Did you verify that claim before detaining him? No. Why not? I didn't believe him. On what basis? He looked suspicious. What made him look suspicious? Ryan couldn't articulate it, because nothing about a property owner in work clothes carrying tools in his own building was suspicious. The only thing that made William look suspicious to Ryan was his skin color. On the body cam footage, you said, "You people always think you know the law." Who did you mean by "you people"? Ryan stumbled. I meant people who resist police instructions. Mr. Reynolds is a black man. The phrase "you people" has documented racial connotations. Were you referring to his race? No, absolutely not. Then why did you use that specific phrase? Ryan had no good answer. The investigators knew exactly what he'd meant. So did everyone who watched the video. Investigators pulled Ryan's history. 9 years on the force, 537 stops, 343 involved black or Hispanic individuals. Of those, 117 resulted in arrests. Only 31 arrests led to actual charges. Only 9 led to convictions. Ryan's pattern was unmistakable. He stopped people of color at nearly twice their population percentage. His arrests rarely held up. 26 formal complaints filed against him over 9 years, 18 alleging racial bias, all marked unsubstantiated. Nobody had connected the dots until now. The investigation took 4 weeks. Findings were released publicly. Officer Ryan Tucker detained William Reynolds without reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. Officer Tucker ignored Mr. Reynolds' statements that he owned the property. Officer Tucker failed to verify the complaint before taking enforcement action. Officer Tucker used racially charged language, specifically the phrase "you people," when addressing Mr. Reynolds. Officer Tucker demonstrated implicit racial bias in his assessment of the situation. Officer Tucker has a documented pattern of disproportionate stops and detentions of people of color throughout his career. Recommendation was immediate termination. The police chief accepted the recommendation. Ryan Tucker was fired on November 18th, 34 days after he tried to arrest a man on the steps of his own building. The civil rights lawsuit moved forward. Williams' attorney filed a comprehensive complaint. 4th Amendment violation for unlawful detention. 14th Amendment violation for racial discrimination. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Violation of Colorado civil rights statutes. Against the city, failure to properly train and supervise officers regarding racial bias. The complaint specifically highlighted Ryan's use of the phrase "you people," documented clearly on body cam footage. City attorneys watched the body cam footage, read the internal affairs report, reviewed Ryan's history. They knew they'd lose at trial. The "you people" comment alone made the case nearly impossible to defend. Settlement offer came within 2 months, $375,000. William countered with $550,000. They settled at $420,000. But like most people in his position, William wanted more than money. He wanted change. Final settlement included mandatory reforms, all Denver police officers complete 80 hours implicit bias training, implementation of early intervention system to track officers with problematic patterns, quarterly public reporting of stop data by race, neighborhood, and outcome, policy requiring officers to verify complaints before detaining individuals, additional training on property rights and owner verification. William also negotiated something unique. He wanted to help design the training curriculum. The city agreed. For 6 months, William worked with the police department and community organizations to create comprehensive training. He brought in other property owners of color to share experiences. He made officers understand how bias affects people's lives and businesses. Some officers resisted, some claimed they were being unfairly targeted, but most understood the message. Old assumptions weren't acceptable anymore. There would be accountability. The case became a reference point for property owner rights and racial profiling. Real estate associations across Colorado took notice. The National Association of Real Estate Brokers used William's case in advocacy work. Law schools added it to civil rights curricula. William became an advocate, speaking at events about property ownership and discrimination. He testified before Colorado legislature about racial profiling. He wrote op-eds. He shared his story to help others. The 3 tenants, Janet, Paul, and Sarah, all moved out when their leases ended. William didn't renew as promised. Word spread about what they'd done. All 3 had difficulty finding new apartments because other landlords had heard the story. William rented those units to new tenants, carefully screening them not just for ability to pay, but for attitudes toward diversity. He wanted a building where people didn't automatically suspect their neighbors of crimes. Ryan Tucker left Denver after termination. He moved to a small Wyoming town and got a job in private security. He told people he was fired because of political correctness. He claimed he was a victim of reverse discrimination. He never acknowledged that he'd racially profiled William, never admitted his approach was wrong, never apologized. He tried getting hired by other police departments in Wyoming and Montana. None would hire him. His termination for racial bias made him unemployable in law enforcement. He works security at a warehouse now, still angry, still convinced everyone else was wrong. William continued building his real estate portfolio. He used settlement money to buy a 7th property. He became more successful than ever, but he never forgot that October afternoon. He kept Officer Mills' card, sent her a thank you gift for being the one officer who actually listened, wrote a letter to her supervisor commending her professionalism. Officer Mills was later promoted to sergeant and put in charge of community relations. She credited Williams' case with helping her see policing differently. 3 years after the incident, Williams' portfolio had grown to 9 properties. He employed 4 people. He'd helped 15 families of color buy their first homes through a program he created. He'd become a mentor to young Black entrepreneurs interested in real estate. But he never forgot that feeling. Standing on steps of his own building, being treated like a criminal by an officer who couldn't see past his skin color, having his own tenants call police on him. He used that memory, turned it into motivation, turned it into change. This story matters because it exposes how property ownership doesn't protect you from racism. William Reynolds had everything society tells us to achieve. He owned multiple buildings, he was successful, he was educated, he was doing everything right, and he was still treated like a burglar at his own property. Still had to hear an officer tell him, "You people always think you know the law," while standing on steps he owned. Ryan Tucker saw a Black man with tools and assumed crime, used racially coded language without thinking, never questioned the complaint, never verified the facts, never considered that maybe the Black man in work clothes was exactly who he said he was. He was wrong. That wrongness cost him his career and the city over $400,000. But more importantly, it cost him the chance to be a good officer. A good officer would have asked questions, would have checked property records, would have listened when William said he owned the building, would have treated him with basic respect. Ryan chose assumptions over facts, suspicion over verification, bias over reason. William chose to fight back, document everything, demand justice, create change from his pain. 3 years later, Denver police stops of Black residents in 5 points decreased by 29%. Complaints of racial profiling down by 38%. Officers know their patterns are tracked and reviewed. In Williams' buildings, tenants of all backgrounds live peacefully. Nobody calls police on their landlord anymore. And William continues building wealth and community, one property at a time. That's the power of one person refusing to accept injustice. One complaint, one lawsuit, one demand that things change. Ryan Tucker thought his badge gave him the right to decide who belonged where, thought his assumptions were good policing, thought a Black man couldn't possibly own that building. He was wrong about all of it. William still owns that building on Welton Street, still does his own maintenance work, still shows up in work clothes carrying tools. But now his tenants know exactly who he is. And if they didn't, they'd ask instead of calling 911. Thanks for watching all the way through. If this story changed how you think about property ownership and racial profiling, smash that subscribe button. I cover more stories about people who fight back against injustice and win. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever been questioned about belonging somewhere you absolutely belonged? I want to hear your stories. See you in the next one.